Red and green.
No.
Oh.
I can only do one thing at one time.
Om Agana Timirandasya Niranjana Sarakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupagada Mayam Dadati Swabhadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raganatham Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Padijana Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanchakapachuvascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patijanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So today we're going to read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 11, the Veda Kirtan pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is of course in honor of the upcoming Rath Yatra in Los Angeles, which like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, all the devotees from Bengal would come every year to visit the Lord during the time of the Rath Yatra. And it was quite a thing. You can just imagine for the residents and inhabitants of Jagannath Puri, having all these devotees descend upon the holy place of Jagannath Puri and perform their pastimes of loving exchange with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and their fabulous kirtan, which will be described in this chapter. So it was a big thing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not just some sadhu living there. He was the big thing in Jagannath Puri, as recognized by the king himself, King Maharaj Prataparudra, which will be mentioned in this chapter also. So, and thinking of all the, maybe for the city of Los Angeles, having all the devotees that come there, it's just, part of the colorful Los Angeles scene. And, in Los Angeles, there are many like crazy people and stuff all over the place and all kinds of things and events, and it's one of the largest cities in America. But actually, it is very significant also, even though not in the minds of perhaps the normal Angelinos, to have the Rath Yatra appear there, and devotees come from all over the country, in some cases all over the world, to be at the Rath Yatra. But it's a significant spiritual gathering of the tribes of the Vaishnavas. So, in anticipation and evocation of this great event, I thought we would read some from this Madhya Lila concerning the Rath Yatra at the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Jagannath Puri Nam. So the first verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world into the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu. And all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The next day, this is continuing the narration from the previous chapter, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it. And if it were not, he would reject it. After all, he's Lord Chaitanya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, there is a king named Prataparudra Rai. He is very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission. Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi who's detached from society, and generally the sannyasis, traditionally, they would not meet with the king so much. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, my dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me? Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as it is to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested, is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. These type of sentiments you don't find in other scriptures outside of the Vaishnava canon. The purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is a quotation from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enunciates the principles for a sannyasi, renouncing the material world for spiritual advancement. Spiritual advancement is not meant for magic shows and jugglery, but for crossing the material world and being transferred to the spiritual world. Param Jigamisho means desiring to go to the other side of the material world. There is a river called Vaitarani, and on one side of this river is the material world, and on the other side is the spiritual world. Since the Vaitarani river is compared to a great ocean, it is named Bhavasagara. The ocean of repeated birth and death. Sagara means ocean, and bhava means birth and death, or material existence. Spiritual life aims at stopping this repetition of birth and death and entering into the spiritual world, where one can live eternally cognizant and blissful. Unfortunately, the general populace does not know anything about spiritual life or the spiritual world. The spiritual world is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 8:20. Parastasmat tu bhavonyo yakto yaktat sanatanaha yaksak sarveshu bhuteshu nashatsu navanashyati. Yet there is another unmanifested nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Thus there is a spiritual nature beyond this material world, and that spiritual nature exists eternally. Spiritual advancement means stopping material activities and entering into spiritual activities. This is the process of bhakti yoga. In the material world, the via media for sense gratification is mainly a woman. One who is seriously interested in spiritual life should strictly avoid women. A sannyasi should never see a man or a woman for material benefit. In addition, talks with materialistic men and women are also dangerous, and they are compared to drinking poison. We may note here that also the same thing is for a lady who's desiring to advance spiritually. Seeing materialistic men and engaged in sense gratification is also the same. So it's not just a macho paternalistic male-centric principle, but it applies both ways. The woman is Maya for the man who's interested in sense gratification, and the man is Maya for the woman who is interested in sense gratification. And furthermore, if you think that you're a man, you're in Maya. And if you think that you're a woman, you're also in Maya, because those only refer to this material body. And that actually the identity of the soul is independent of this material body, whether one has a male body or a female body. Inside the spirit soul is the same. So we are all equal spirit souls. Although it also may be pointed out that actually Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is called Purushottama, Purusha, the Supreme Male, Purusha Uttama, or Parama Purusha. So he is the Supreme Male, and actually all the living entities who are his expansions, his parts and parcels, or his energies, we could say, are female in relation to him. And the relationship is one of servant and the master. The servant and the served. The master is the supreme male, and all the servants are Prakriti. Purusha means the supreme male, and Prakriti means the parts and parcels. So actually we are all feminine in relation to Krishna. So don't go getting all puffed up thinking that you're this body and that you're a man or a woman. That is Maya. One time one of our friend Shesha Prabhu was giving class in Alachua and encountered some statements like this about women, and he said, so some of you ladies listening to this class, is a big temple with a lot of people in it, more than 100 devotees. You ladies, are you feeling pinched by hearing this, feeling that you are being cast into an inferior position? And then some of the ladies raised their hand. He said, therefore you are thinking you are this body and you are in Maya. You're identifying with this body, but that's not who you really are. We're all fallen souls who are in Maya, whether man or woman. So if you're a man and you're very puffed up thinking you're a man, or if you're a woman thinking, oh, this is not fair, then you have not understood your position as spirit soul. And if you're feeling some ding to your false ego, then that's exactly what it is, the false ego being like, hey, why are you denigrating me? Well, you are not being denigrated. You are the spirit soul. And so there is to understand the dynamics of this relationship between the soul and the body, and understand these statements within the context of Vedic literature is edifying and enlightening for both the ladies and the gentlemen. Or as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that we are all brothers and sisters, children of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore we're equal. But the bodies aren't necessarily equal. When it's time to lift up a heavy box, the ladies will ask the men to do it. And when it's time to, except for Chandrika, they'll lift it herself. Yeah. And when it's time to do some of the finer arts related activities, the gentlemen will gladly cede to the ladies, for example. Just to understand this point perfectly, in case someone is thinking on the material platform. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict because he's sannyasi, and the duty of the sannyasi is not to, the sannyasi is not permitted to speak with women or be alone with a woman, or shouldn't even, according to the rules of brahmacharya, one shouldn't even not even think about the opposite sex. So there's some pretty strict sannyas etiquette. He therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes, refused to see King Prataparudra, who was naturally always engaged in political and economic affairs, not the business of the sannyasi at all. The Lord even refused to see the king, despite the request of a personality like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who's the Lord's intimate friend and devotee. Just see how glorious is this presentation by Srila Prabhupada of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He tells the pastime, but he gives the philosophical and cultural background as well. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "My dear Lord, what you have said is correct, but this king is not an ordinary king. He is a great devotee and servant of Lord Jagannath." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, although it is correct that the king is a great devotee, he is still to be considered a venomous snake. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form. This means that brahmacharis should not play with Barbie dolls. Right? Purport. Sri Chanakya Pandit has stated in his moral instructions, Taja dhurjana samsargam bhajasadu samagamam. This means that one has to abandon the association of materialistic people and associate with spiritually advanced people, as confirmed elsewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Asat Sangachag, E Vaishnavachar, Stri Shangi Eka Sadhu, Krishna Bhaktar. That the achar of a Vaishnava is Asat Sangachag. He jaga, renounces or gives up the association of those who are asat, materialistically inclined and engaged. And he only associates with sat sangha, sadhu sangha, sarva shastri. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a venomous serpent. Everyone knows that a snake is dangerous and poisonous. And when its hood is decorated with jewels, it is no less poisonous or dangerous. Manji, can you get me a cup of cold water? Please. The blue cup, dark blue cup. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a snake decorated with jewels. So if you have an Arizona rattlesnake and you put some jewels on his head, oh, what a beautiful snake. But he would bite. One should therefore be careful in dealing with such materialists, just as one would be careful in dealing with a bejeweled serpent. Even though a woman may be made of wood or stone, she becomes attractive when decorated. One becomes sexually agitated even by touching the form. Therefore, one should not trust his mind, which is so fickle that it can give way to enemies at any moment. So this is the real problem. It's not the Barbie doll. It's the consciousness, or the mind, in this case he's mentioning. The mind is always accompanied by 6 enemies. Namely, Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, and Bhaya. That is lust, anger, intoxication, illusion, envy, and fear. Although the mind may be merged in spiritual consciousness, very good, yes, one should always be very careful in dealing with it, just as one is careful in dealing with a snake. One should never think that his mind is trained and that he can do whatever he likes. We've seen this. We've experienced this, that one thinks, yes, I'm trained up, I can do whatever the heck I want. I can do whatever I damn well please. I'm beyond the rules. I got it going on. No, he has to be very careful. One interested in spiritual life should always engage his mind in the service of the Lord, so that the enemies of the mind, who always accompany the mind, will be subdued. If the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness at every moment, there is a chance that it will give way to its enemies. In this way, we become victims of the mind. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra engages the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna constantly. Thus the mind's enemies do not have a chance to strike. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example in these verses, we should be very careful in dealing with the mind, which should not be indulged in any circumstance. Once we indulge the mind, it can create havoc in this life, even though we may be spiritually advanced. The mind is specifically agitated through the association of materialistic men and women. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his personal behavior, warns everyone to avoid meeting a materialistic person or a woman. This is so fantastic. These instructions are incredible. To the Prabhupada, is just bringing it home. And then the verse is quoted here. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear a materialistic person and a woman. Indeed, he should not even glance at their bodily features. This is a quotation from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, 824. Second quote from that work. Next verse. Bhattacharya, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Being afraid, Sarvabhauma returned home and began to meditate on the matter. But later on, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did meet with Maharaj Prataparudra, but under very special circumstances. He was in a trance of ecstasy during the Rath Yatra. They took a little break in the park, and then Maharaj Prataparudra came in the dress of a Vaishnava and began to recite verses from the 10th canto, chapters 28 through 32, the Rasa Leela verses. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated it so much. Go on chanting. Go on chanting this nectar. You're so magnanimous. You're giving me an ocean of nectar. but he pretended like he didn't know it was Maharaj Prataparudra. Although because he's God, he knew exactly who he was. But in that way, he met with the king and didn't meet with the king. That's the pastimes of the Lord. At this time, Maharaj Prataparudra arrived at Jagannath Puri, Purushottama. That's another name for Jagannath Puri, Purushottama Kshetra, or the field of Purushottama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another name for Lord Jagannath, Purushottama. And accompanied by his secretaries, ministers, and military officers, went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath. Purport: it appears that Maharaj Prataparudra used to live at Kataka, or Katak, his capital. Later, he shifted his capital to Kurda, a few miles from Jagannath Puri. Presently, there is a railway station there called Kurda Road. When King Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Roy came with him. Ramananda Roy immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. Purport: all Indian kings are given titles. Sometimes they are known as Chhatrapati, sometimes as Narapati, sometimes as Ashwapati, and so on. The king of Orissa is addressed as Gajapati. I believe that means he's the master of many elephants. Gaja, like Gajendra, elephant. Upon meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy offered his obeisances. The Lord embraced him, and both of them began to cry in the great ecstasy of love. Seeing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Roy, all the devotees there were astonished, because Ramananda Roy was a big governor of in South India under the kingship of Maharaj Prataparudra. Ramananda Roy said, I duly informed King Prataparudra of your order for me to retire from service. By your grace, the king was pleased to relieve me of these material activities. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his governorship, and according to the Lord's desire, Ramananda Roy petitioned the king. The king was very pleased to give him relief, and thus Ramananda Roy retired from service and received a pension from the government. He had, great 401k, a lifetime full pension. Because he was a great devotee, and Maharaj Prataparudra knew that Lord Chaitanya wanted Ramananda to retire from his Kshatriya duties as the governor and come to Puri and just spend time with him. And because Ramananda Roy is a very highly advanced devotee, although apparently in a governor's position. So the king graciously granted Ramananda Roy his retirement and full pension, so that he could just spend his time with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramananda Roy continues, I said, Your Majesty, I am not now willing to engage in political activities. I desire only to stay at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kindly give me permission. So King Prataparudra is a good boss. I want to give up my job and be Krishna conscious. Okay, full pension. Ordinary boss doesn't do that. When I submitted this proposal, the king immediately became very pleased upon hearing your name. And indeed, he instantly rose from his throne and embraced me. My dear Lord, as soon as the king heard your holy name, he was immediately overwhelmed by great ecstatic love. Catching my hand, he displayed all the symptoms of love. So now, first Sarvabhauma has requested the Lord to see Maharaj Prataparudra. Now Ramananda Roy is softening him up by telling him what a great devotee Prataparudra is. As soon as he heard me As soon as he heard my petition, he immediately granted me a pension without reductions. Thus the king granted me a full salary as a pension and requested me to engage without anxiety in the service of your lotus feet. Then Maharaj Prataparudra very humbly said, I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive an interview with the Lord. If one's life is successful, he engages in his service. The king then said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth, he will allow me an interview. That's pretty humble. Future birth. Taking the long view, as a great politician would. My Lord, this is Ramananda again, speaking to Chaitanya, I don't think there's even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, My dear Ramananda Roy, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him. Purport. King Prataparudra requested an interview with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Bhattacharya, who duly submitted the request. The Lord, however, immediately refused this interview. Now, when Ramananda Roy informed the Lord how eager the king was to see him, the Lord was immediately pleased. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his government post and come to Sri Purukshottama Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, to live with him. When this proposal was submitted to King Prataparudra, he immediately accepted it and also encouraged Ramananda Roy by allowing him a full pension. This was very much appreciated by the Lord, and this confirms that the fact that the Lord is more pleased when one serves the servant of the Lord. In ordinary parlance, it is said, if you love me, love my dog. To approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to go through his confidential service. This is the method. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly says, because the king loves you, Ramananda Roy is very fortunate. Krishna will certainly accept him due to his love for you. And then this verse is quoted. It's a great verse. Ye me bhakta jana partha, nami bhaktash chate janaha, mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas, te me bhakta tamamataha. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my servant are factually my devotees. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse from the Adi Purana. This verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, which is by Sri Rupa Goswami. So that's such a wonderful verse. If someone thinks, I am a devotee of Krishna, then he is not actually a devotee of Krishna. But one who thinks, I am the devotee of Krishna's devotee, Krishna says, and he is actually my real devotee. And then this verse is quoted from a couple verses from the 11th canto. My devotees take great care and respect in rendering me service. This is Krishna speaking to Uddhava. They offer obeisances to me with all their bodily limbs. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy of their bodies. They engage the power of speech in the glorification of my qualities and form. They also dedicate their minds unto me and try to give up all kinds of material desires. Thus, my devotees are characterized. Purport. These two verses are quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 19th chapter, 21 and 22. They were spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who was answering Uddhava's inquiry about devotional service. I was going to quote these verses and explain this, but that's all right here. And now next a verse is quoted, which is spoken by Lord Shiva. Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnur aradhanam param tasmat parataram devi tadiyanam samarchanam. Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, "My dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu." Purport. The Vedas are divided into three divisions: Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. These are activities dealing with fruitive work, empiric philosophical speculation, and worship. There are recommendations in the Vedas for the worship of various demigods, as well as Lord Vishnu. And this quotation from the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva answers a question posed to him by goddess Durga. This verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita by Srila Rupa Goswami. The words Vishnur Aradhanam refer to the worship of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Thus, the supreme form of worship is the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. It is further concluded that the worshipper of Lord Vishnu renders better service by worshiping the devotee of Lord Krishna. There are different types of devotees. Those in Shanta Ras, Dasya Ras, Sukya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, and Madhurya Ras. Although all the rasas are on the transcendental platform, Madhurya Ras is the supreme transcendental mellow. Consequently, it is concluded that the worship of the devotees engaged in the Lord's service in Madhurya Ras is the supreme spiritual activity. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers mainly worship Lord Krishna in Madhurya Ras. Other Vaishnavas, Acharyas, recommend worship up to Vatsalya Rasa. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami in his Vigdagda Madhava describes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult as supreme. And the Sanskrit is quoted. Anarpita chiram chirat karunaya vatirna kalau samarpayitam onoto jwala rasam svabhakti siyam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this age of Kali to exhibit the super excellence of Madhurya Ras, a gift never previously bestowed by any acharya or incarnation. Consequently, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepted as the most magnanimous incarnation. It is he only who distributed love of Krishna while exhibiting the super excellence of loving Krishna in the conjugal rasa. Wow. Another quote. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees progressing on the path back to Godhead. The path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. Purport. This verse is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 7th chapter, 20th verse. It was spoken by Vidura in his conversation with Maitreya Rishi, a great devotee of the Lord. Returning to the narration. Paramananda Puri, Ramananda Bharati Goshani, Sarup Damodar Goshani, Lord Nityananda, Jagadananda, Mukunda, and others were present before the Lord at that time. Sri Ramananda Roy therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to the 4 spiritual masters. Thus, Ramananda Roy suitably met all the devotees. Purport. The 4 spiritual masters referred to in this verse are Paramananda Puri, Ramananda Bharati, Sarup Damodar, and Lord Nityananda, who were also masters. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next asked Ramananda Roy, "Have you already visited the temple of the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath?" Ramananda Roy replied, "I shall now go to visit the temple." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "What have you done, my dear Rai? Why did you not first see Lord Jagannath and then come here? Why have you come here first?" That would be the etiquette. Go see the deity in the temple first, then visit the devotees. Ramananda Roy said, Ramananda Roy is very poetic. This is a quote. The legs are like the chariot, and the heart is like the charioteer. Wherever the heart takes the living entity is obliged to go. In the Bhagavad Gita, 1861, Lord Krishna explains, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshar arjun tishtati ramayan sarva bhutani yantra hudani mayaya. Quote, the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of material nature. Yantra rudhani mayaya. Yantra means machine. Thus the living entity within this universe, wanders within this universe, riding upon a chariot, a body, bestowed by material nature. A similar explanation is given in the Katha Upanishad. Sanskrit is quoted. Here it is said that the living entity is the passenger, riding in the chariot of the body, which is offered by material nature. The intelligence is the charioteer. The mind constitutes the reins controlling the horses, and the senses are the horses. Thus the living entity is the false enjoyer of the material world. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can control the mind and intelligence, and in this way rein in the horses, the senses, even though they are very powerful. One who can control the senses by his mind and intelligence can very easily approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Vishnu, who is the ultimate goal of life. Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasanti Surya. Those who are actually advanced approach Lord Vishnu, their ultimate goal. Such people are never captivated by the Lord Vishnu's external energy, the material world. Sri Ramananda Roy continued, what shall I do? My mind has brought me here. I could not consider going first to Lord Jagannath's temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised, immediately go to Lord Jagannath's temple to see the Lord. Then go home and meet your family members. His brothers and his father, they lived in Jagannath Puri. Having received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's permission, Ramananda Roy hastily went to the temple of Lord Jagannath. Who can understand the devotional service of Rai Ramananda? When King Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, he called for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When the Bhattacharya went to see the king offered him respects and made the following inquiries. The king asked, have you submitted my petition to the Lord? Sarvabhauma replied, yes, with much endeavor, I have tried my best. Yet despite my great endeavor, the Lord would not agree to see a king. Indeed, he said that if he were asked again, he would quit Jagannath Puri and go elsewhere. Hearing this, the king became very unhappy and greatly lamenting began to speak as follows. The king said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has descended just to deliver all kinds of sinful, low-born persons. Consequently, he has delivered sinners like Jagai and Madhya. Alas, has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incarnated to deliver all kinds of sinners, with the exception of a king named Maharaj Prataparudra? Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is thus described by Narottam Das Thakur. Patita pavana hitu tava avatara mosama patita prabhu napai deyar. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to reclaim sinners, then one who is the most sinful and lowborn is the first candidate for the Lord's consideration. Maharaj Prataparudra considered himself the most fallen soul because he had to deal with material things constantly and enjoy material profits. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's business was the deliverance of the most fallen. How then could he reject the king? The more fallen he is, the more he has the right to be delivered by the Lord. provided, of course, he surrenders unto the Lord. Maharaj Prataparudra was a fully surrendered soul. Therefore, the Lord could not refuse him on the grounds that he was a worldly pounds, shilling man. So Narottam says that you're a Patita Pavana, you've descended to deliver the most fallen. And I am the most fallen, therefore my claim is first. Alas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his advent deciding that he would deliver all others with the exception of me. He bestows his merciful glance upon many lower class men, who are usually not even to be seen. This is also from the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Maharaj Prataparudra continued, if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is determined not to see me, then I am determined to give up my life if I do not see him. Purport. A devotee with Maharaj Prataparudra's determination will certainly be victorious in advancing in Krishna consciousness. Sri Krishna confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 9:14. Anyone know what that verse is? Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridavata. Of course, easy for me, I got the book. Namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination. Yantatascha dridavata. With a vow of great determination. Bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. These are the symptoms of a Mahatma engaged in the Lord's service in full Krishna consciousness. Thus, Maharaj Prataparudra's determination is very much exalted and is called Vridha Brata. Because of this determination, he was finally able to receive Lord Chaitanya's direct mercy. If I do not receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, my body and my kingdom are certainly useless. Purport. This is an excellent example of Dhirodatta, determination. If one does not receive the Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy, one's life is defeated. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, 5:5:5, unless one inquires into spiritual life, everything is useless. Without spiritual inquiry, our labor and the object of our labor are simply a waste of time, as it also said in the first canto, Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. Hearing King Prataparudra's determination, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became thoughtful. Indeed, he was very much astonished to see the king's determination. Purport, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was astonished because such determination is not possible for a worldly man attached to material enjoyment. The king certainly had ample opportunity for material enjoyment, but he was thinking that his kingdom and everything else was useless if he could not see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is certainly sufficient cause for astonishment. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that bhakti, devotional service, must be unconditional. No material impediments can actually check the advancement of devotional service, be it executed by a common man or a king. In any case, devotional service rendered to the Lord is always complete, despite the devotee's material position. Devotional service is so exalted that it can be executed by anyone in any position. One must be simply Dhirodatta, firmly determined. All right, so we're going to stop there. And any question, comment, or discussion? Turn. All right, thank you very much. And all glories to the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all glories to the devotees' pilgrimage to Los Angeles for Sri Jagannath Rath Yatra. Hari Bol.